Hi mamas, welcome back to the Truly Mama YouTube channel. I'm Jillian and I'm here to share with you today my induction story. Did you know that each month in the calendar has an average of 30 to 31 days? With the exception of the last month of pregnancy, which has 3,486 days. I'm just kidding, although that's exactly what it felt like. Now, it's very important for me to begin this video by telling you that I am in no way, shape, or form here to give you any medical advice. I am not an expert on the topic. I am just a mom who has been there and done it and wants to share my journey in the hopes that it'll help someone else. Now, if you find today's video useful, be sure to give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. You can also leave me a comment down below to let me know what labor and delivery questions you have. We may just have an expert ready and waiting to answer them for you. Now, if you hear a swooshing noise in the background, I will let you know that that's because my baby is asleep on the monitor and I have to keep a close eye. That swooshing noise is the Hatch Baby Rest Down machine, which I've reviewed on this channel before. I absolutely love it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. So when it comes to the kind of pregnancy that I had, while it was totally remarkable to me, it was pretty unremarkable from a medical perspective. Everything was pretty straightforward. I was healthy, the baby was healthy. The only real blips that I had were a kidney infection that was pretty uncomfortable and some pelvic girdle pain, but other than that, it was pretty straightforward and kind of a textbook pregnancy for the most part. My baby was measuring big, and when I tell you that everyone and their grandma thought that I was going to go into labor early, I mean that everyone and their grandma thought that I was going to go into labor early. I was due on June 8th, and by May 22nd, I was having tons of pre-labor symptoms. I lost my mucus plug, I had the bloody show, I was having contractions, but nothing was getting regular enough to signal that it was time to go to the hospital. At one point, I even thought that my water broke, went to the hospital. Turns out I had just peed on myself. The joys of pregnancy. With all of these pre-labor symptoms starting around May 22nd and me being so desperate to meet my little one and for this pregnancy to just be over with, I was desperate to do everything that I could to get this labor on the go. I tried everything under the sun that was safe for me to try and induce my own labor. I ate whole pineapples, like I mean the whole pineapple, the rind and all. On the advice of my OB, I went for I can't tell you how many walks. I did that curb walking. I bounced on a yoga ball. I did everything I possibly could that was safe to try and get this labor going, and nothing worked. My OB did 2 cervical sweeps for me. Nothing happened. I was 3 centimeters dilated and 75% effaced for weeks, and nothing was happening. When I tell you this was the longest, most head trippy experience of my life, I mean that with everything in my soul. The way I describe this period in my life to people, it's like your bags are packed and your shoes are on and you're waiting for a limousine to come pick you up for the most magical vacation of your life, and you're standing there waiting for hours. You don't have a set time that this limo is going to arrive, but you know that you're ready and you know that you're super excited to go on this vacation, and the limo driver just keeps not showing up. Before I knew it, my mucus plug had already grown back, I had lost it again, my due date came and went, and nothing was happening. After my due date passed, I started practicing a tearful speech to go into my OB's office and beg for her to induce my labor, because at this point, I was just over it and ready to get this show on the road. Now, when I walked into my OB's office that Thursday, June 12th, she took one look at me and said, "Honey, we are putting you on the list," and I was elated. She told me that I may get the phone call to head over to the hospital that day, but she said that it could take up to a couple days. So my doctor placed us on the hospital list on a Thursday morning around 10 o'clock, and we got the call to go in almost exactly 24 hours later. My husband and I were out for breakfast. The phone rang. It was the woman at the hospital. She said, "Good morning, Jillian. We're ready for you to come in and have your baby. Make sure that you eat a good meal and head on over whenever you're ready." So there are different options for inducing labor and delivery. The induction process is actually considered to start as early as when your OB will strip your membranes or give you a cervical sweep, as I had already referred to. So if you think about it that way, my induction process actually took a few weeks because my OB had stripped my membranes twice. She did it on one Thursday at my appointment, waited another week, did it on the Thursday at my appointment, waited another week, and then put me on the induction list to head over to the hospital and really get things started. So I need to be honest in saying that being induced was definitely not what I visualized for my birth experience. I had all of these fantasies in my head of my water breaking in the middle of the night or breaking at a really random time, and my husband and I rushing over to head to the hospital, and that's really not what happened at all. Instead, what my birth experience looked like, the way that it started, was weeks of agonizing of when it was going to start, weeks of being super uncomfortable, dying to get on the induction list, finally getting on the induction list and heading over to the hospital in a very calm and collected manner. As much as I didn't think I would like being induced, I actually kind of loved it because it gave me time to slow down and prepare to head over to the hospital. I was able to take a shower, I was able to shave my legs, I was able to have a good meal. Things were very calm and peaceful and loving. We even recorded a little video for Louie before we headed to the hospital. My mom, my husband, and I piled in our SUV and we headed over to our hospital. When we got there, we were able to check in again in a very calm and collected and peaceful manner at the registration desk, and then we were brought up to the birthing floor. We got settled in our birthing suite and we waited for the doctor to come in and start the process. We had 3 nurses throughout my labor and delivery process, all of who were amazing. My first nurse's name was Lindsay, and she helped me get comfortable and let me know kind of what I could expect. So the first 2 things to happen were for the doctor to come in and break my water, and then they were going to start me on Pitocin, which is also called the love drug, and what that does is it helps your contractions start. I don't remember a whole lot super clearly about what it was like to get my water broken, but I do remember that there was a hook involved and the doctor, and I also remember that it wasn't painful. The doctor came in, he ruptured the amniotic sac, and the fluids just started gushing. From there, I thought back to the time that I had thought my water broke, and I actually had just peed on myself, and the difference between the 2 was vast. So I don't want to say that you'll know when your water breaks, because I do know some women that had a slight tear in their amniotic sac and had been leaking water over time. But typically when your water breaks, it is a lot of fluid. With that said, if you're being induced, be sure to bring yourself a pair of flip-flops that you can just throw into a grocery bag after the fact, because everything gets soaked. After they broke my water and started me on the Pitocin, they checked my cervix. They came back about an hour and a half later. They came in and checked my cervix again. There was no improvement. This happened 3 times, and it was very frustrating. And although I would have been totally open to a C-section if that's what was needed to safely deliver my baby, it was something I was a little bit nervous about because, of course, I mean, giving birth is scary, but going in for major surgery is very scary as well. So I was starting to get comfortable with the idea that I could very well need a C-section because my cervix was not progressing. So after those first 3 cervical checks that there was no improvement on the dilation of my cervix, my contractions started to get pretty intense, and I requested the epidural, which the doctors and nurses kept kind of urging to me. As soon as you're not comfortable anymore, like, request the epidural. It's fine. We can get it for you. Just go ahead and request it. We're ready to give it to you when you need it. So I got to the point that I was starting to get pretty uncomfortable. The contractions were starting to get pretty intense, and I went ahead and I requested that epidural. It was amazing. I loved it. Again, getting the epidural was also something I was super nervous about. My husband has children from a previous marriage, and he kept telling me, like, oh my gosh, Jillian, the needle is so long. So that's all I had in my head. So it was something that I was really nervous about. It was a breeze. The doctor turned me around on the bed. I held on to my husband's arms. I did not move a muscle. The next thing I knew, the epidural was in. It was easy peasy breezy. Loved it. Recommend it. 10 out of 10. Would do it again. So after I had my epidural, they came back to do another cervical check, and you would not believe it, I was fully dilated and ready to go, which made me fully realize that I spent so many weeks so stressed out about when was I finally going to go into labor that my body wouldn't let me go into labor because I was too stressed out. So it's like as soon as I had that epidural, it forced my body to relax, and it allowed things to open up to get ready to deliver my baby. At 6 o'clock, when the nurse did that final cervical check and said, hey, you're 10 centimeters dilated, you could really start pushing anytime, she also let me know that the baby was still a little bit higher than was ideal. So because he was higher, she said, you can save yourself a whole lot of work if we just allow him to come down on his own, which is exactly what I elected to do. So between 6 o'clock and 11:30, my husband, my mom, and I just hung out in the hospital room on a Friday evening. It was kind of like a little party. We had a great playlist on Spotify. We listened to the Soul Coffee playlist, which is my favorite and was my delivery music, and it is still a playlist that is near and dear to my heart and reminds me of that very magical experience of having my son. If you're on the fence about whether or not to bring music into the delivery room, I can't recommend it enough. It was something that I didn't know that I was really going to like to have because I thought it may be a little bit more irritating than anything else, but it totally set the mood. All of the doctors and nurses commented on how calm down the environment, how soothing and mellow it was. It really was like a cozy Friday night at home, just hanging around with my loved ones and waiting for the magical gift of my son to arrive. Around 6 o'clock, I had a nurse change. Lindsay left, Jenna came in, in and she took over the show, and she was wonderful as well. She was super pleasant. She was able to answer all of our questions, keep me comfortable, and keep a close eye on things just to make sure that we knew exactly when it was time to start pushing. So while I was laboring, I tried a couple different positions. The nurse brought in the squat bar. We tried that. Tried a sheet tied to the squat bar, which allows you to pull on the sheet and kind of push yourself forward to bear down a lot harder. And we also tried just straight up laying on my back, which of course, me being the diva that I am, I found the most comfortable. I am 99.9% sure that I pooped while I was in labor, but I will not let my husband tell me, and that is something that I hope that he takes to the grave. That said, pooping during labor was one thing that I was totally horrified and nervous about. I promise you, ladies, if this is a fear that you have right now, that fear will be gone in the moment. I promise you. And even though it was gone in the moment, I still don't want to know if it happened. So that was my experience. After about an hour and a half of pushing, Jenna left and the other angel nurse came in. She came in the room and she said, "All right, doll, I've been doing this for a really long time. We've got 30 minutes. Let's have a baby." Well, my other two nurses were totally wonderful. It was really great to have a nurse with so much experience come in near the end. She was able to tell exactly what was going on as to why the baby wasn't coming faster than he was. She got me to turn from laying on my back to push to turning on my side, which helped turn the baby, which helped him progress faster. What was happening is I would push 3 times, he would get so far, and then he would scoot back in. So she was able to kind of turn things for the baby to progress better. And really, that's what I wanted. It wasn't about my comfort so much anymore as it was about getting this baby out of me, because I had been laboring for an hour and a half and I was ready to be done. I ended up needing an episiotomy, which really wasn't a big deal. I couldn't feel it and I healed up really beautifully. So the doctor felt like that's what had to happen to deliver this baby, and that's what happened, and I was totally cool with it. And after 2 hours of pushing, my son was born. I remember my doctor saying to me, "You're doing awesome. You were born to do this. Just a few more good pushes and you're going to meet your baby." I heard my mom start bawling and crying and saying, "Oh my God, Jillian, he's so beautiful." And my husband said, "Bae, he's here." And the next thing I know, I look down and I see my little Louis sweet angel face. And the first thing that I said was, "Oh my gosh, he's so cute." And he really was just the most precious, beautiful thing I have ever laid my eyes on. They put Louis up on my chest and I heard his first little cries, and I looked at him and I said, "Hi baby, I'm your mama." And I just started to talk to him. And as soon as he heard my voice, I cry every single time I tell this story. As soon as he heard my voice, he popped open his little eyes and he found my face and he snuggled in and he stopped crying. And from that exact moment, we have been the best of friends, and he is the absolute light of my life. From there, we worked on getting Louis' first latch. We spent some time recovering as a family and just starting to get to know one another. After a little while, my stepfather came over to the hospital to pick up my mom and meet his new grandson. When it was time for me to have a shower, and this is another one of my most favorite moments of my induction and birth story, my mom and my stepdad took their new grandson and spent some time with him, and I went in to have my shower, and my husband actually came with me. Now, I have to be totally honest with you when I tell you that the fluorescent overhead lighting in this bathroom and the condition that my very newly postpartum body was in, it was not a pretty sight, but again, I didn't care. The love that I felt between my husband and I in that moment was so amazing, and it was so beautiful to have a moment to ourselves in that bathroom. He helped me get undressed, he helped me get in the shower, and he helped me shower, and he just kept telling me how proud he was of me and how lucky and blessed we were to be a family. Other highlights that I remember were eating toast after I gave birth. It was so delicious. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, we got wheeled up to our hospital room where I was able to order 24-hour room service and crushed a full thing of macaroni and cheese at 6 o'clock in the morning in the dark by myself. That was pretty cool. So from that day, June 15th, 2019, I have been loving being a mama. While I didn't expect that I was going to be induced, it turned out to be a really wonderful thing. I had a really fantastic labor and delivery experience. It wasn't necessarily what I dreamed of, but turned out being everything I could have dreamed of and more. As always, if you found today's video useful, be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and leave us a comment down below to let us know what questions you have in the realm of labor and delivery. For more tips, tricks, advice, and all things motherhood, head on over to TrulyMama.com. Until next time.